Hey everyone, welcome back to our Polyglot Developer Twitch stream. This is, I think, the fourth stream in our lineup. So like I say at the beginning of all streams, I'm still learning how to do the whole Twitch thing. So expect that there may be some hiccups along the way when it comes to audio and video. If you do catch something, please let us know. Please let us know that, hey, there's something that we should look into as far as fixing. The topic of today's episode. So I'm with Alex Ziskin, so the one and only NativeScripting.org runner. So he is the master at NativeScript, so developing mobile applications for Android and iOS using common web technologies. Right, Alex?
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is actually my first time live streaming, so.
Yeah,
Hello.
Awesome. Yeah, so this hopefully this is an exciting experience for you, since this is your first time. So as you can see, we do have Alex sharing his screen. I do want to also point out that again that we are live. So let me type in the chat to show you that please interact with us. Make this a interactive experience. We want to hear your questions. This is your opportunity to ask both myself and Alex questions on NativeScript development. But beyond that, I mean, Alex, where do you want to get us started when it comes to developing these applications?
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start off with the NativeScript CLI. The NativeScript CLI is kind of like the core tool that you use in order to interact with NativeScript to scaffold out brand new applications, to run applications, to build them, and to deploy them to the app stores. So just a brief introduction, NativeScript is a cross-platform framework that allows you to develop iOS apps, native iOS apps, and native Android apps using JavaScript and CSS, for those of you that are not familiar yet. There are a couple ways to try out NativeScript. One way is to use the NativeScript Playground. Let me just bring that up real quick so you can see that here. If you go to play.nativescript.org, then you'll be able to see the playground, and this gives you an example right here.
Yeah, hey.
This way,
actually, can you zoom in a little bit, Alex?
Yeah, let's see if I can here. How's that?
I don't feel like it changed. Oh, there we go. There was a slight delay.
Small delay.
Yeah, that's okay. All right.
So this is the playground. And here, you're able to quickly get started without having the NativeScript CLI installed. So a lot of people prefer this method right off the bat, just because it's so easy. And when you go to play.nativescript.org, it already starts off, created a new project for you. As you can see, this is a Hello World Vue project. So this is a NativeScript Vue project. Now, if you click New here, you can just select what type of project you want to start off with. So let's say you want Angular. You can click on this, and this will kick off a brand new Angular project for you. And here you can just start building stuff right here. Now, in order to see the result, you would need to have a phone handy. Hold on one sec. Let me grab my phone. You can have either the iOS device or an Android device. And you're going to need to have a Playground application. So it's the NativeScript Playground. It's a free app that you can just download in the App Store.
Is this for Android and iOS app stores, or is it just for one?
Yeah. For both Android and iOS.
And do you need to sign into any kind of account prior?
No, there's no account necessary. You just download the app. It's free. When you kick it off, it looks like this. Yeah. So that's looking for a QR code to scan, right? And if you look at my screen, right now I started off an application here, and I can say preview.
Is it going to give a QR code?
All right. When I click on preview, it's supposed to give a QR code. Or I can just do this, I guess.
Yeah. Now, in theory,
maybe
somebody could scan your QR code right now on the Twitch stream and follow along. Is that true?
They can, yeah, absolutely.
Sweet.
So that in fact is something they can do, but they probably didn't download the Playground application yet, so I'm going to do this much quicker.
All right.
Maybe. Let's see.
We'll throw it back up on the screen again as we progress.
All right, so when I scan it, it brings up the app in the preview app. So there's two
Yeah.
free apps. One is the Playground app and one is the preview app. Now it brought up the preview app, and you can see down on my screen here that my phone is connected, named Digitalex. It's an iPhone.
Yeah.
Tells me what version of the NativeScript I'm running. So you actually get this two-way communication, which is really cool. So here is the preview of this application. I'm holding this in my hand and it's going to the cloud. It's pretty amazing. So if I change anything here in the code, let's say this first line, it says play with NativeScript, right? So this is a label, it has text in it, and it says play with NativeScript. And if you take a look at my preview right here, the first line there.
It's a little hard to see. Oh, all right, we see it a little bit.
Yep, it says play with NativeScript. So I'm going to go ahead and change it in the code here. I'm going to say play with NativeScript 2.
Now, I actually have a few questions while it loads. So, one, is this strictly for physical hardware, or can you use a simulator with this?
Okay, so this is only for hardware.
Got it.
Right, so this is for you to quickly check things out, and as you can see, now it's updated that label to play with NativeScript 2.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a little hard to see because it's small and the lighting is weird, but I think we get the idea.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch to the simulator in a second, where it's going to be much easier to see it for you guys, but if you are in a pinch and you don't want to go through the process of installing the NativeScript CLI and all the prerequisites that it's necessary to run the simulator environments on your machine, that's a quick way to get started.
Yeah. Do you know if there's any kind of, because just to be clear, you didn't make this NativeScript playground and you don't work for the people who make NativeScript, right?
If I was smart enough to make this kind of thing, I would probably have a different job, or I'd probably be rich. I don't know.
But do you know if there's any kind of limitations on how many people can be testing this application at any given time?
That's a very good question, and I don't know. I know I gave a talk once. I gave a talk at NC DevCon in North Carolina, where I had the whole group, and there was probably like 40 or 50 people in the room, connect to this thing while I was updating it. It worked fine.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that's the preview and that's the playground. If you're curious to get started, jump in right away. By the way, this will let you just drop in random things like a list view. And what's nice about this is you can just drop in these components and it'll wire everything up for you, including sample data. So you can just go ahead and grab that. And when you're done, you can click on this download button.
Yeah.
You download it, and it gives you a project in a zip file.
Sure.
So you can download that and then continue working on it locally. So pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And that's just to confirm here, and I know I'm asking you silly questions, but it's just for the viewers who are new to this this particular material. NativeScript is native app development, right? Even though that it's kind of deploying ad hoc and you're using web frameworks, it's still native applications, right?
Yes. So the final result that you get is an APK file, that you can upload in the case of Android, that you can just upload to the store. It's a native app that you get as a result of this process. Yeah. So you get that native app, and all the components that actually run are native. The JavaScript that you write runs on top of the native components, and it just makes the interaction between your code and the native components simpler for JavaScript developers.
Got it.
Cool. All right. So I prefer to use the NativeScript CLI because I do courses on NativeScript and I do lots of demos and development, and it's just quicker for me to get started with the CLI because I've already had it set up. So the setup process is not super easy. I made 2 YouTube videos on my YouTube channel. By the way, I have a YouTube channel about NativeScript. I have like 160 videos on there, something like that. Lots of different tips, tricks, tutorials on NativeScript. You can check that out. And 2 of the videos that I have there are about the installation process on Windows and another video on the installation process on a Mac. Now, the difference between the two is that on Windows, you can only run the Android environment. So you can install Android Studio and you can have the Android emulator running. On a Mac, you can have the Android emulator, of course, and you can also have the iOS emulator, simulator it's called, and the iOS build process as well. That's just a limitation from Apple that they require you to have a Mac in order to build it. So let's do an example, shall we?
Definitely.
So now we're going to use the CLI and all the simulators and emulators that I have installed after I did that process of installation. Assume that you already have all this installed.
Yeah.
You can issue the command NativeScript. I've already installed the CLI, so that's why I have NativeScript here. And I currently have, oops, that's a double dash. Currently have version 6.4 of the CLI. I think I'm behind.
Sure.
Now it's the current version of 6.5 as of today. And you can also use the TNS command, which is what I like to use because it's shorter. So it's just an alias for the NativeScript command. And in order to create a brand new application project, you say TNS create, and then let's say demo C.
All right.
No, demo polyglot.
Sounds good.
This is all you need to create a brand new application. Now from here, you have a couple of options. You're going to be taken through a wizard here. And this is similar options that you have with the playground. So you can create either an Angular project, a Vue.js project, a TypeScript project, or a JavaScript project. I think we're going to go with Vue today.
Let's do it.
So let's do Vue.js.
So there's no React in there yet, huh?
Now, mind you, there is no React in the CLI, but React NativeScript is available as a separate repo. It's not part of the CLI yet because it's very new. But it is available. So if anybody wants to do React with NativeScript, you can do that. And you can also do Svelte.
I've never, I can say that I've heard of Svelte, but I've never actually seen anything. I've never seen any Svelte code.
I've seen a talk by Richard Harris, the creator of it, and it looks really cool. And I really want to try it out. I just haven't dug into it yet, but it looks really cool. All right, so we're creating a Vue.js application, and we have a couple of other choices here. One is a blank app, one is a side drawer app, and one is a tab. So these are just templates that are pre-configured with certain components already in place that are for common navigation patterns. So you can have the tabs, a side drawer, or blank. Let's just go with blank to start out with. So this is going to go, now you need to be connected when you're scaffolding out, connected to the internet, because it's going to go and download the required resources, including the template. As you can see, it's looking up, well, you can't really see actually, but it's going out and fetching the stuff from NPM and installing all that stuff. So this takes, I don't know, a few seconds to do.
If after you've done this one time, if you wanted to reuse the project, you wouldn't have to have the internet connection, right? Like if you were to use it as kind of like your base project that you kept on your computer somewhere, you could just make copies of it.
I see what you mean, like a local template.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, you can do that, as well as you can just create a local template. And with your create command, so TNS create demo polyglot, you can just give it a template flag and point it to where you have that.
Got it.
So yeah, you can do that. But also, after you've created the project, when you're running it, each time you run it, it does not require a connection.
Perfect.
Of course, if you have an app that requires the internet connection, then your app will work, right? Most apps require it nowadays. So we're going to switch over to that directory, cd demo polyglot, and I'm going to use Visual Studio Code to open that up, and we can take a look at that. here's your project structure. So app is the main folder where your code lives. Everything else is kind of helper folders. We have some configuration for the editor. We have a hooks folder that's more advanced. Node modules is all the packages that you're depending on. And here's packages.
Are you able to full screen your Visual Studio Code?
Yeah. I never work in full screen.
You never work in full screen?
So weird.
Oh my gosh.
No. Yeah. I always have lots of little windows so
goodness.
I can look at many things at the same time. But I'm also working with a 27-inch screen. So.
And I'm sure it's like 10K, right? 10K resolution.
It's 5K. 5K resolution. So I have, I can fit a few things on there. Here's package.json. Here we can specify what dependencies we're pulling in. So what's really nice here is that we're using npm, right? So that means that a lot of the libraries that are JavaScript libraries, we can just reuse right here. For example, let's go to npm and let's say this one, date funds.
Is this the one that people are using instead of Moment.js nowadays?
Yeah,
I heard about it, but I have not actually used it myself.
6 million downloads now.
At what point in time did this surpass Moment.js? I feel like I just got into Moment.js.
Let's check Moment.js.
Am I going to be the only person who's using it right now?
Whoa, Moment.js is deprecated. What's the new one?
Maybe it's I think it's just Moment. Yeah.
Is it? Okay, let's check Moment. Oh, this one's still beating. It's 11 million downloads.
I don't feel so bad now.
If you notice, this says published 6 days ago. Moment was published a year ago. Now that could mean just the maturity level of the library, right? Moment has been around for a while, so they're not publishing as often, but this one is definitely taking over. Now, do you know the difference between them?
I actually do not know the difference.
So Moment is mutable, right? You're just passing in dates and mutating them. But this one is completely immutable. So you're getting new objects, which is it's really congruent with all the different immutable styles of programming that we have these days.
Yeah. Are you able to zoom in just a little bit on the screen? I'm worried that it might be a little small. Perfect. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's plenty. Want to make sure that it's visible in case people are not full screened.
Yeah, so this is the one I like.
Let's give it a shot.
And this is the one I use. Let's install it, sure. So I'm gonna hit Control backtick here to open up the terminal in Visual Studio Code and say npm install date funds. I don't know how to pronounce it. I just say funds.
It's not like date functions.
It's FNS. So
do you want to hit the zoom button one time on your IDE too? Just in case? Yeah, just once.
Okay.
There you go. I know that it's taken up most of your 5K screen right now.
Yeah, each letter is 1K at this point. All right, so here's date funds. It's a version 2.11, and now it's installed under dependencies. Yeah. And this is a dependency, of course. It's not a dev dependency because this is running JavaScript live. All right, so we'll have that there in our back pocket, and this is just an example of us being able to use it.
Sure.
So let's go back for a second to our app.js and take a look at the code. So here's app.js. This is where the project kicks off. Now, I think in web projects for Vue, it's called main.js, right? Here they just chose app.js, but you can change it here. You can just say main.js and change the file name to main if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. So now with NativeScript, you'll find some differences between the code that you're going to write in your template. So the template code is going to be very different. We're not writing HTML here. We're not writing DOM. We're not writing, like divs and things like that. But we have a whole different UI language here. So we have frames, we have pages, we have layouts. These are things that are still written in XML format, like the web. However, these are things that are compatible with the native mobile app environments. So that's the difference between like here and Ionic, for example. You're very familiar with Ionic. In Ionic, you're just going to write web code, but you're not getting a native app. You're getting a web app running in a web view. Here, you're actually defining your native components using XML.
And this is pretty standard for other frameworks too. Like React Native does the same thing, right?
So I believe it does, but I'm not too familiar with React Native, so I can't speak too much to it. Okay, so here is our home.vue. It's a single file component. So we have the three sections. We have template, we have our script here, which is JavaScript, and we have here the CSS, but it's actually Sass, right? So we have a pre-compilation step that's using Webpack. Webpack config is right down here in case you noticed it. So everything gets compiled with Webpack before it gets packaged up into your final application. So here's an example of Sass. Sass is being precompiled by a plugin in Webpack. Okay, let's run this. I'm going to head out here, demo polyglot. Now to run it, we're going to use the NativeScript CLI. I'm going to issue the command tns run.
Yeah.
And then you can do iOS, or you can do Android, or you can do both. I'm going to do iOS first.
All right.
Nobody in the chat yet?
No, sometimes people just like to lurk. I know when I'm watching Twitch streams, I generally lurk. I don't want to embarrass myself, but don't think of it that way. Actually, you're not going to embarrass yourself by engaging with us. We want you to participate.
Yeah, folks. Ask your questions. This is your
I'm
chance.
sending out a tweet right now to remind people we are live.
Yeah, ask your questions, folks, because right now what we're doing is we're waiting for the build process, which takes like maybe a minute to do. So what this is really doing is it's building a native application, and it's going to kick up an iOS emulator, or called a simulator. So here's what's happening right now. The iPhone 11 Pro Max simulator.
Is your computer going to be able to handle that?
I think so. My computer is making a lot of sounds right now.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's doing that. It's an older computer.
It's like some chainsaws going on over there.
2014. This thing is 6 years old. So yeah, you can see the native process going on right here. First, there's the Webpack process. That might look familiar to those of you who are working with Webpack. You can see that it's packaging things up into bundle.js. And of course, you can do the typical Webpack things like separate your bundles out, load things on demand, things like that. And then it builds using Xcode. So there's that line that says Xcode build. That's why we need to build apps for the iOS on a Mac, because Xcode works only on a Mac. So we're using Xcode tools in the background.
Yeah.
Well, we're not. I mean, the NativeScript CLI is to build this application and deploy it to the simulator. Here it is. It's running on the iOS simulator in iPhone 11 Pro Max. And this is a native app right here. So it says blank NativeScript Vue app.
Yeah. And if you're not using a Mac, this is a perfect reason to use the playground, right? If you've got an iOS device but no Mac.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there we go. I'm going to just open both of these up so we can see them at the same time.
Oh, you spinning up Android now too?
No. This is just the iOS one, but I wanted the code next to it so we can see them together. So here's that message, blank NativeScript Vue app.
Yep.
If I change this to say blank NativeScript Vue app 2, I know I'm very creative, right?
Yeah, I know. Same naming convention as the playground.
There it is. You can see that it was almost instantaneous there with a refresh.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So there we go. Pretty cool. Now there's also some colors back there. We have an accent color. This is for that icon right there, the little rocket.
Yeah.
FAS. So by the way, we're using font icons here, right? Font awesome icons.
Wait, so font awesome works in this?
Font awesome works with NativeScript, yeah.
Sweet.
So NativeScript has always allowed you to use custom fonts.
Yeah.
Right. Native applications need you to do that, but also font awesome. You know, the library includes custom fonts, but also you can hook them up with CSS.
Yeah.
Which NativeScript also supports. So there you go. Font awesome in NativeScript.
And these are the fonts, not the SVGs, right? The vector graphics?
No, these are fonts.
Very nice. That's pretty good.
So, yeah, it's really handy. Let's change this. I'm just going to delete that style right there. See if that does anything. Now, I typically don't work with this template.
Yeah.
I typically work with a different workflow because I like to use TypeScript with my NativeScript Vue applications. It's a slightly different workflow. You can always add TypeScript to this.
Sure.
But in order to create a brand new NativeScript Vue application with TypeScript, there's an easier way. And if anybody wants to see that in the chat, let me know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll just continue with this.
I'll bring it up again soon.
All right, cool. So yeah, there's that little span right there, and it's using a font awesome icon. Now, we also have this. So let's just start over with the UI here. I'm just going to go through the UI. Now we define a page here in the template. The page is the whole page that you see. At the top of the page, we have an action bar.
Yeah.
And then we have this thing called a grid layout. So NativeScript comes with a bunch of layouts out of the box. One of them is the grid layout. It's a very versatile layout that allows you to position things in rows and columns, kind of like a table would in HTML.
Yeah.
Right now we only have one element in there, and that's the label. Let's change that. And
if you had too many columns, will it scroll?
So no, because in native you have a different way to scroll. You have something called a scroll view that you need to use.
Got it.
But there is a list view that automatically scrolls. Now that's the list view in NativeScript is one of the huge advantages to long lists because it's using a native list that's super optimized for fast scrolling. So you know when you flick the screen on iOS and it just goes flying by.
Yeah.
When you're using just HTML for that list, it's not going to work that way because it needs to render all the rows and it's just going to be really clunky and chuggy. So if you have like thousands of rows, it's going to need to keep all that in memory and it's just not going to work. Now with NativeScript, the list view component, the list view element is optimized and it recycles rows. So things are really fast. And it's basically using a virtual list and it's only showing you maybe like 40 items at a time. Yeah. It's only rendering 40 items at a time, so it allows the fast scroll to happen. All right, so we're going to do a button here, and we're just going to reuse this message right here that says that has a view binding the text property to message. And I'm going to delete this label here. So a button has text, and a button has an event. Now in HTML this would be a click event. In the native world this is a tap event. So just like on the web we use the binding syntax for view like this, at tap. And I can do an on tap method that we're going to call down here. So let's create a methods section. By the way, I feel a little bit naked here because I'm not using TypeScript. With TypeScript, when I start typing ME, it would have shown me all the available options, but it's not doing that here.
So that's weird that you say that, because maybe it's plugins that I have, but I get all kinds of type ahead features in my Visual Studio Code when I'm just doing vanilla JavaScript. I don't know if I'm have something special going on, or.
So if you're just doing a JavaScript file, like we have main.js here.
Yeah.
And if I say, like, let's say new view. So Visual Studio Code is able to reach into Vue and get its TypeScript declarations and show you those as help inside JavaScript files.
Sure.
That's part of the tooling. That's why we are having the navigate back, navigate to, and register element shown right there in IntelliSense, even though this is not a TypeScript file. But when we're inside single file components right here, we don't get that help because it doesn't know how to interact with that file.
Got it.
All right, methods, and then we need the method that handles this tap event, which is going to be on tap. So let's define that method right here, and we're going to do an alert. So in NativeScript, there's a few common global methods that are available.
Sure.
These are the ones that are popular to use in the web. Set interval is there. Set timeout is there. And some of the alert ones are there. So alert is there. Prompt is global. And so is confirm. So if you develop for the web, you might have used these. Typically, we don't use these anymore. It's very like 90s style type of messaging. Late 90s. When did these messages come up? Maybe early 2000s?
Probably back when people thought JavaScript was evil, right?
Yeah, when the alert message would just keep popping up.
Yeah.
You couldn't stop it or close your window. So yeah.
Back when people were forced to disable JavaScript in their browser, right?
Yeah, that was pretty annoying.
Those were the dark days.
But it comes in really handy here in NativeScript.
Yeah.
Because not only it has the same API as the web, right? Alert, you can just alert a message. Hi there. You don't have to use alert. You can use a custom dialog or a modal dialog, but it's handy for diagnosing stuff. So so this is now a button. It's a button with that same text, but if I tap on this button, you can see that we get an alert. It says hi there. So notice a couple of things about this. One is this button. It's native button.
Yeah.
All I had to define here in my markup was button, the text for it, and the tap handler, and it created a native button for me. So this is just a pure naked iOS native button. And if I tap on this, you can see that I'm holding my mouse button right now down, and you can see that it has a different style to it.
Yeah.
That's the native style. I didn't have to do that. Right, so that's something you get out of the box. When I tap on this, I get this modal alert, which is a native alert. It's a native dialog.
Yeah. And when you do the same thing in Android, the buttons are going to look different, right? Because that's the experience that they're getting on that particular platform. Or are they going to look the same?
Yeah, exactly. No, they're going to look different. So I'm going to open up a new terminal here, and I'm just going to say tns run Android.
Yep.
And that's going to build our Android application. So we're going to take a look at that also.
Yep.
But while that's happening, we can just continue here.
Sure.
So alert is there. We can do confirm, of course, same idea. So if I say, oh, there's Android. That's going to pop up soon. Confirm. Okay, so when you say confirm, you get options. You can cancel. You can say OK. And this returns a promise to you in JavaScript, which is really cool. So now you have then, I believe. Oh, no, it just returns a Boolean. Yeah. So it's either true or false. If you press OK, it's going to be true. Okay, so that is the basics getting going. Now, you can style this button as well. So let's say you wanted to do some crazy CSS stuff. You can just add a class. My button.
We haven't seen what it looked like on Android yet, but if we wanted to, could we make them look the same?
Yeah, we're going to try that right now.
Sweet.
So I'm going to say my button. And by the way, this is a style section that's scoped, so it's only going to affect this. But also you have this global app.css, right? So you can put your styles in the global CSS file as well. That'll be picked up as well. But we'll stay scoped here. If you remove the scope, it works just like it does on the web. It's going to bleed those CSS styles all over your application. Let's check Android. Nope, not done yet.
Not done? Did it hang? Looks like it might have hung.
No, it's still building. There it is. Okay.
Uh-oh, we got some chats in here. We got a Brad Martin character calling us maniacs.
Who's this Brad Martin? I don't know any Brad Martins. If this is the Brad Martin that everybody knows and loves, then welcome.
Yep.
Brad is a well-known name in the NativeScript community for doing a zillion plugins, I believe.
Yeah, the plugin master, one of the several plugin masters.
Yeah. Thanks for being a valued community member, Brad.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so here's Android, and Brad is an Android specialist, by the way. I'm more of an iOS background person. That's why most of my demos will be on iOS, but here's an Android example. So you can see that the button looks different here. You can see that it's got a little bit of a shadow there.
Yep.
And if I tap on it, I don't know if this will come through in the video, you'll get a ripple effect.
Yeah, we saw it sort of. It was fast.
Yeah, so that comes from material design. It's an animation. And you can see the confirm dialog is a native dialog, an Android native dialog. So it's styled completely differently.
Yep.
Cool. So let's go back here and make a change. So I'm going to do, well, I removed my alert, but that's okay. We're just styling the button. So let's style this button. Let's do a background color. Notice how I can just style using regular CSS here. So if I want to do aqua, check it out. Both Android and iOS refreshed at the same time, so I can have them both running at the same time, and I get that fast refresh. And we got the aqua button now for that beautiful styling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now this might be a crazy ask, but are you able to run several different iOS simulators at the same time, so that way you can test the tablet and the phone experience maybe at the same time? Or is that like something crazy and out of control?
You're crazy. I can't believe you're asking for such amazing things that we were never able to do before.
Yeah, because the last time I submitted an iOS app, and it's been a little while because I don't like submitting iOS apps, they make you do both, right? The tablet and the phone, and this whole long, awful process. But if the NativeScript shell lets you test all of them at the same time and maybe even get all of your screenshots at the same time, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so there's tools that will let you do that screenshotting automatically.
Yeah. But I mean, without having to
you can also
constantly switch and reboot simulators.
Yeah, I mean, you can also run several simulators at the same time right here. So that's what I'm about to do. I just kicked off the process again because when you start up a new simulator, the deployment process didn't happen at this stage. But once it's already up and running, you can just kick off that build and run process again, and then you'll have both simulators updating at the same time. So let's say I need a little more space here. Let's say I change the font color. No, it's not font color, it's just color to red.
Yeah, I'm not very good at CSS, so I forget half that stuff as well.
And font weight. Come on, you can't forget color. That was my bad.
I don't, surprisingly, yeah, I think I sometimes put font color in there.
Yeah, it makes sense that it would be font color because you're
Yeah,
changing the font color, right? Yeah,
yeah.
leftovers from the previous generations.
Now that's awesome that you're able to test out so many simulators at the same time.
Yeah, so there we go. We have a native action bar too here, by the way, so we can style that too. We have a label inside. We can apply styles to that. So I'm going to apply that same class up here in the label. It doesn't look very pretty, but it does the job. So we have a button and we have a label, and they both share in the same class, so they both look the same. So yeah, there we go. We have other CSS things that we can apply here.
Yeah.
However, one thing I do have to add is not all CSS styles make sense in native world.
Yeah.
So some CSS styles, some properties for CSS only make sense on the web. And therefore, not all CSS styles or properties are supported in NativeScript.
Do you have an example of one that's not? That might be commonly used for web?
Yeah, one is a big pain point that has a pretty good workaround, but the box shadow property is one that's really commonly used on the web.
For adding
People
depth,
have been
right?
asking for it for many years. Yeah, yeah. But it's not, unfortunately, it's not available in NativeScript. However, there are workarounds for that. And the reason it's not available in NativeScript is because shadows are, in the native, on the mobile devices, you want to be as frugal as possible with your power consumption. There's a lot behind that, and you want to create your UIs that are simple. You want to create UIs that are as simple as possible, I should say, and as flat as possible as far as your hierarchy. On the web, most people don't care. But on native applications, you should care.
Yeah.
So that brings me back to the shadow thing. And shadow takes up a lot of processing power because when you overlay a shadow on top of other elements, you have to recalculate the shadow, and you have to recalculate what's behind the shadow every time something moves. And that's expensive, and that's going to drain your battery.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why it hasn't been implemented, but it is possible. And if I just may show my
Plug it.
YouTube channel here for a second.
We won't get any sound, but yeah, plug it. Zoom in too. You're in these small windows, and a little hard to see.
Yeah, no worries. So
what's the channel?
This is pretty relevant.
The channel ID. I can get it into the.
I think if you just go
let me search for it. 1 second. You go ahead and do that. I'll grab it and I'll post it in. No worries. I think I'm pretty sure I'm following you.
YouTube.com/channel Alexander Ziskin. No, that doesn't work. Okay, never mind. You can just Google for my name on YouTube.
You're not Digital IX?
Google on YouTube. No, it's Alexander Ziskin.
All right.
All right, so I've been doing a bunch of videos, and specifically I have a bunch of videos on shadows and how to do shadow. Here's an example of how to do a shadow in Android. All right, I'm not going to actually play this thing, but maybe I can show you. Oh, boy.
It'll play, we just won't get sound.
We have this ad. Let me just skip through this real quick. So let's see if I have an example of that. So yeah, there is a shadow. I can show you how to do shadows, how to change the different parameters of the shadow on Android. And on iOS, NativeScript, iOS shadow. Okay, so here's my tutorial on doing shadows in iOS, which is a completely different beast. So I'm going to get into this in a second, but if you want to check out how to do this kind of stuff, so here's a hexagonal shape or an octagonal shape in NativeScript. It's an octagonal button, but it has an octagonal shadow as well. It shows different properties that you need to adjust for creating shadows in iOS.
What are you doing on your computer over there? It's making jet engine sounds.
Yeah, it's not happy right now. Maybe it's your Twitch stream.
Maybe.
Yeah, so the reason we can do these kinds of things in NativeScript is because, and this is the coolest thing I think about NativeScript, you can actually use native APIs in NativeScript directly in your JavaScript code. So I show lots of examples of this on my YouTube channel, but let's say you're familiar with how to do something in iOS. So maybe you found some article, iOS shadow. Let's say you Googled for something.
Yep.
Right? And you found an article on how to do a drop shadow in my UI view in iOS. And UI view is a class in iOS. So this tells you how to do it. There it is.
Yep.
Okay, but this is Objective-C code. How do I do this in JavaScript? Right? That's the problem. Well, the beauty is that you can just do that script code. Of course, you need to translate it to JavaScript. Right now it's Objective-C, but you can just put in the equivalent JavaScript code and it'll work. It'll just work. So you need to grab a hold of the Vue reference,
Yep.
Which you can get by getting the button, for example, right?
Sure.
And each one of these components here in NativeScript has the equivalent iOS and Android properties on it, which you can get a hold of. And those are the native equivalents. So those are the things that actually get rendered on the screen.
Now,
that's your view.
Question. So these, what you have right here with the shadow offsets and stuff, this seems, I mean, this is not CSS properties. This is something to get the shadow, right?
Right. So these are your native properties. So your view is actually your native iOS view or native Android view.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, this is Objective-C code. So you need to make sure that this only runs on iOS. Otherwise, it'll crash on Android. And there's special things you can check for that. You can check to see if you're running on iOS. There's is iOS property right there. So if is iOS, then you would run this code. Otherwise, you'd say else, and then you'd run your Android code here.
Yep.
So whatever the Android code to create the shadow is. All right. Now, if it's iOS, then your view is going to be your UI view, which is what we just saw in that Stack Overflow article. So a lot of the stuff that I usually need to do in NativeScript that I can't do out of the box, like shadows, Google for it. I check it out if it makes sense. If it's got a good response rate, like this one right here, for example, then I can just use that code, but I would have to make sure it's JavaScriptified.
Yeah, which wasn't hard to do.
JavaScriptification. That's what I call it.
It's a good term for it.
So if you find an Android version, which is going to be most likely Java code.
Well, I don't know. Are they using Java still? I think a lot of people are switching over to Kotlin.
Yeah, so Kotlin is in the works right now to be supported.
Yep.
I think it's close. Maybe it's even supported now. I don't know if somebody can chip in. If Brad is there still, he knows a lot about that. But I know that Swift is not yet in there.
Sure.
I think it's very close to being in there.
But it's not the end of the world, because there's a lot of just, I guess, edge cases, right, where you would need to worry about that kind of stuff. Correct?
Exactly. And Objective-C and iOS has been around for so long, and Java has been around for so long, that a lot of the examples you'll find out there for things you want to do are still going to be Objective-C and Java. So, yeah. All right, so here's just a quick example of how to convert this particular thing to JavaScript. So we're going to take this line right here, which is Objective-C. You're going to get a hold of your view, which is going to be your iOS view.
Yep.
And you want this button, basically. So let's see, how would you get a hold of this button?
Can you add a reference variable to it?
You need a ref. right? And then you access it here. So you'd say something like.
So ref is, I think, view specific. So you're saying it works on NativeScript UI tags, correct?
Yes.
Sweet.
Good point.
And if this was Angular, would the Angular equivalent work as well?
Yes, exactly. So ref is very view specific. So this button is actually very view specific button, right? It wraps, it's a view button that wraps the NativeScript button that wraps the native buttons. You don't need to worry about all that. All you need to worry about is that it's a button and it has ref available to it. And if this was Angular, you'd have hash button. You'd be able to access it that way, and you use the ViewChild property. All right, so we'd say this dot refs. We'd reach into there, and this would be called my button. And then you'd get the native view. Now, I'm not going to actually execute this code because I'm not 100% on this right now.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens if you try to execute it in an error, so that way people can see what errors look like in NativeScript.
You're going to put me on the spot here. Fine.
Well, I mean, you've written flawless code so far, so we don't know what happens if it doesn't work.
This is a Twitch stream, so things break, right? We're expected to have that happen.
Yeah, and
although we're coming up to 9 o'clock, so maybe we should.
The rules of the rules of live streaming is once you have one problem, you have everything else is a problem after that.
Okay. Let's try this. So instead of the button, because on Android the button already has. Well, you know what? We'll keep going with this. Let's go with iOS view click to bounds. And this is the line I'm trying to translate, right? Yeah. Click to bounds equals no. What the heck is no? There's no such thing. It's false, right?
Yeah.
No is Objective-C. JavaScript has false.
Sure.
It's a Boolean. So let's try that. If it crashes, it crashes. Okay, it didn't crash. It didn't crash.
Sweet.
It's amazing. Did we get any errors in the console? No, we didn't. So maybe. Oh wait, I need to tap. Hold on a second. There's still time for this to crash. I tapped. Didn't crash yet. Okay. Let's keep going. So I'm going to translate the next line right here, which is the view layer shadow color. iOS view dot layer shadow color, and here we're going to use this. Now, what the heck is this? Right?
Yeah.
So this is the Objective-C, and it's an enum in the UI color class.
As somebody who doesn't do Objective-C, this would scare me away instantly.
This is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a couple ways around this. If you're using TypeScript, this would be super easy because all you need to do is just install NativeScript platform declarations.
Yep.
So NativeScript platform declarations, real quick, that allows you to get all the native UI types as TypeScript declarations, right? So for those of you that are using TypeScript, you just be able to say UI color here, and you press dot, and it'll tell you like, okay, black color is available. So that'll be really easy. But there's another way to do this. NativeScript comes with its own color module that we can import. So if we say import color from TNS core modules /UI /color. Oh, maybe not. Maybe just UI color. Maybe just color. Okay.
Sure.
There it is, color. We're importing color, and we can say color dot. Oh, let's do a new color. New color, and we're going to say, what color do you want this shadow to be? Green?
Yeah. No, the green is going to blend a little bit too much with the blue. Can we do red, maybe?
Red. Let's do red. So this constructor for color will take in a known color.
Yeah.
Or it has, as you can see, 3 other overloads.
Sure.
It can take a hex, and it can take ARGB. Once we get this new color, this is a NativeScript concept. So this color right here is coming from TNS core modules. And TNS core modules are NativeScript modules. So everything is in JavaScript here at this point. How do we get a native shadow color from NativeScript color? Well, everything in NativeScript, all the core modules have an iOS and an Android property.
Yeah.
So we can get that from here. We just say iOS and this will give us the iOS equivalent of that. Now, we also need CG Color, which is just a different layer. Now that you're native, now that you've gone to iOS, now you're in native world, you can just say CG Color here, and you'll get that core graphics color object that this requires.
Sure.
All right, no crash yet. Okay, we're doing all right, I think. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. So I'm going to copy this line right here.
I assume it's not rendering yet because it's not offset yet, and it's directly behind it.
We're going to add an offset. Yeah, we're going to add an offset right now, and we can just call CG size make, I think. I hope. And then we're going to call one more, and that's the shadow opacity. Let's do 0.7. Do we have a shadow?
I don't think so.
No, don't have a shadow. Okay, CG size make maybe doesn't work. So basically now we've translated this to JavaScript.
Yeah.
And I probably screwed one of these things up. I don't know which one.
Is there an error?
No, no error.
All right.
I'm really tempted to go and watch my video now.
Hey, there's no shame in that. I watch all my videos numerous times per month, so I can't remember everything.
Hold on. If I go to native scripting, and this is my site, by the way.
Yes,
where you can
please zoom in and give us a shameless plug here.
Yeah, so everybody that wants to learn NativeScript through either live training or video training, here is nativescripting.com, where you have the core track, the Angular track, or the Vue track. And if you click on one of these, you get a bunch of different courses that are available on that track, and there's even bundles here.
And these are
check out the courses.
These are high production value, post-processed courses, right? With lectures and very, very rigidly defined agendas, correct?
That's right. So I plan everything out ahead of time. I cut out all the fat. There's no just like sitting there chatting for hours about one thing. It's all to the point. So it's all like produced and
some of these courses are like 8 hours long, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know how long they are, but I keep adding new content as it shows up. So it's going to change in the future, and it keeps changing. So there's also this section, which is the articles section, which I wanted to bring your attention to, which, we've got a bunch of people contributing, which is pretty cool. We got Tiago, Dave, Tyler, William, Shiva's on there too. So there's a bunch of stuff here, and included in this is some shadow stuff. So here is the shadow article that's equivalent to that video that I showed.
Yeah.
So the video linked here as well, but here you're able to copy and paste code if you wanted to, and it's available as a reading format if you wanted that. So guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna copy and paste from here.
Love it. That's how you know you're a senior developer, right? When you copy and paste everything.
That's right. So this is also a NativeScript core project, not a NativeScript Vue project. So we'll see if this works. Let's try it out.
So it looks like you, for the most part, had everything matching. What's with the UI view? I didn't see you create a UI view. Is that because we're not we're using the refs for the button?
Yeah, it might be a problem with the refs that I got. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Did you call it my button up top, or did you call it something else?
If this was TypeScript, it would be golden, because then it'll just show me what I'm doing wrong. But I'm in the blind here. I feel naked. Let's try this.
It may also be the color, because you did it differently in that snippet that you took it from.
So the color, here we're doing UI color.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't work, I mean, it's something to try.
Let's try it. Let's try UI color as well.
We're working backwards, right?
Let's try that.
All right, so you saved it. It still doesn't look like it's there.
No, I'm going to restart it too and see if that works.
Yeah, sometimes you need to reboot.
Oh, do I need to tap?
Oh
I
man,
forgot to tap.
was that the problem the whole time?
I need to tap. Folks, sometimes you do dumb things. Nobody said this, did they? No,
No,
nobody said. So here's
I
the
missed it
on
too.
tap
I
event.
missed
This
it
is
too.
where I'm doing it,
Yeah.
right? I'm doing it inside the on tap event. So obviously this happens after tap. And
Yeah.
this just goes to demonstrate another thing that's pretty cool about this. Since I've tapped on this, this happens in real time. There is no asynchronous call that happens at some later time. This happens, this gets applied, all these properties gets applied and changed in real time synchronously
Yeah.
to the underlying native platform, which is cool. So I'm tapping, and there we go.
So
we got
if you undo a few times, will the code that you had previously work? Probably, right?
I don't know. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to tap on this. It should give us a red shadow. Let's see.
Of course it does.
Boom. Nice. All right. So you saw the really powerful thing, the most powerful thing about NativeScript, in my opinion,
Yeah.
is being able to just talk to the native APIs like this. Now, of course, you can do similar things like calling HTTP calls, and I don't know, how much time do you think we have here?
It's up to you. I know that it's late over there. It's 9 p.m. for you on a weekday. So it's totally up to you. I've got time if you want to keep going. I think this is fantastic stuff.
I want to show one more thing.
Sure.
So let's do something here. I'm going to do changing text as a result of a button tap.
Sure.
So here we are inside the grid layout. And I'm going to do a label here, and I'm going to do a text property here. And I'm going to bind that to my text. Now, because this is a grid layout, we need to specify rows. And I'm just going to give it 2 equally sized rows. Button is going to be in row 1 by default. I'm sorry, row 0 or 0 based. We can either specify that like that or just leave it alone.
Yeah.
And we can put label in row 1. And we also need my text. So let's do that. Let's add a data property here. That needs to return an object with my text. Hello. There it is. It's really tiny.
Yeah, it is small.
Maybe we should make that bigger.
Let's
make it bigger by adding class. I'm just going to add a class to this label right here.
Sure.
It says my button, so they look the same. There we go. Okay, so now we have my text, and when I tap the button, I'm just going to say this dot my text equals updated. So just so you know, you can see all the different Vue things that actually work the same way, except the Android version is not working now. Maybe I just need to restart it. Oh, look at this. It is working.
All right. Oh, because it's iOS.
My text update inside iOS. So now you can see that this works on Android and iOS. In fact, we're just going to do this. Updated from iOS. And if I tap on this on Android, I'm going to say updated from Android.
Sweet.
Boom. Okay, so I'm going to tap this button. Updated from Android. Updated from iOS. Updated from iOS. Cool. Now, what's cool about, remember I mentioned the global functions that are exposed, just like they are on the web?
Yep.
One of them is HTTP. So we can say fetch here if we want to fetch some HTTP data. The fetch API is available as well here, just like it is on the web. Let's do a very relevant example here. We're going to do COVID, which everybody knows by now is the coronavirus. And there's this public API that's available. So if you go to this URL right here, covid19.mathro.id/API, you're going to have these numbers. Very sad, sad story right now, but it's pretty relevant. So we're going to grab the total number of confirmed cases here in our NativeScript application. So we can just, when we tap the button, we're going to go and fetch this, and we're going to get a response back. And we're going to say response.json. So return the JSON data.
Do you know if NativeScript will work with Axios? That's another popular HTTP package that people use.
Good point. Good point. So if you're using NativeScript, so if you're using Vue, you're probably using Axios. Maybe, maybe not. But Axios is very popular to use with Vue, and NativeScript Vue works with Axios as well.
Yeah. I got invested in Axios before I started with Fetch. So it's like Fetch came around, and I'm like, I'm already invested in Axios. What can I tell you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not using Axios, but I use Fetch for most of my things.
Yeah, that's whatever the preference is, right?
Yeah, but Axios has some really cool functions that I really should start using.
Yeah.
So there's our data object. It's this whole thing, right? So we just need to get confirmed property and then the value. So let's do that. Data.confirmed.value. We're going to do the console log. Console log is another one of those things that's familiar to everybody because it's coming from the web world as well. It's one of those global things. So if I press this, get a console log that says confirmed cases, and there it is. That matches that value right there from the browser.
Nice.
So now we're getting it in NativeScript. So we can also do.
And did that work? Did that work with iOS too, without having to set any kind of app transport rules? So iOS still requires app transport rules to be set, right, to prevent certain kind of safe listing of URLs, or is that not a thing anymore?
So yeah, you can absolutely control what URLs your iOS app talks to.
Yeah.
You can do all the native things that you can do with setting plist values. So if you're more familiar, it's more of an advanced move, but yeah, you can do that. But this is HTTPS, right? So that's going to work out of the box. If this was HTTP,
then it would fail.
This wouldn't work. It would fail. We would need to go and configure and loosen up those restrictions.
Got it.
And where you would do that is, I'll show you that in a second, but let me just run this real quick.
Sure.
I'm going to tap this button. It says confirm cases. So now we have that label updating with the confirm cases here.
Awesome.
Now, if you wanted to do more advanced things, you have this folder called app resources.
Yep.
And a lot of times you need to go here when you're deploying your application. You need icons, or if you need images in your application that are static, you would put them in here and deploy them as resources that you can later get inside your app. So here you can store your launch screen, for example. Here's some examples that come with the template that we installed. So there's some launch screens, not very visible, but here's some icons. So these are your app icons.
Yep.
They come in different sizes. And you have this thing called info plist. So this is where you can control a lot of the behaviors of your application. And this gives you a dictionary of key value pairs that you can adjust. Here you can see all the different things that are available. There's a ton of things that are available, I should say, but you can set them here if you want to. Here's for iOS. And for Android, you have the famous Android manifest file, which also gives you a lot of some of the same things that you can control. So, yeah.
I love it. No, this is good stuff.
That's about it. I mean, that's a lot of stuff for one evening. Some of it is a little bit more advanced than I guess we were planning to do, but yeah, there's an intro.
That is a fantastic intro. What I'm doing right now is I'm typing in your Twitter. It's Digital IX, right?
Yeah.
You on Twitter?
Digitalix.
All right. One more time, I just want to plug NativeScripting.com. Fantastic resource for developing NativeScript applications. And Alex just touched the surface on some of the things that you can do with NativeScript. So Again, this is native app development using familiar frameworks that are commonly used for the web. So you're going to get that performance. You're going to be able to develop in something familiar to you. And the whole life cycle of creating mobile applications is going to be significantly improved. Especially you saw the playground up front, which you didn't even need to have anything installed beyond something on your mobile device. So the barrier to entry is very low. I will be putting this video on demand on YouTube. So if you've caught it late or you missed it, no worries. It's popping up on YouTube. Go ahead and leave some comments on the video. Again, like I said at the beginning, still trying to figure out the Twitch thing, trying to get everything polished and under control. If you notice something that maybe slipped up, went wrong, and you know how to fix it, let me know, because I'm, like I said, not a Twitch expert. So you may be better off than I am at giving me advice. Anything else you want to add, Alex, while we've got you here?
Sure. First, thank you so much for having me. This is my first Twitch stream, and I enjoyed it. This was fun, and I appreciate you having me on. There's one more thing. If anybody wants, there's a free webinar that I run. You can go to nativescripting.com and click on free webinar up here in the top menu, and this will register you for a webinar. It's pretty informative. It's for beginners, advanced, intermediate people. There's a bunch of information there. It's 1 hour long, and there's a ton of stuff in there that you can.
Is this a live webinar?
If you're advanced. No, it's a pre-recorded webinar, but I'm sometimes on there answering questions. There's a lot of people that show up and they ask questions, and I'm more available to type and answer people while it's going on.
And this is free? Most of them free?
Yeah, it's totally free.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good value. You're learning from somebody who's a professional here at NativeScript. This is the guy who almost wrote the book. One of the founders, right?
Wait a minute. I didn't write any books because I don't know, I'm not a good writer, but there are a couple books out there. One is written by Nathaniel Anderson.
Yeah.
There's one written by Nathan Walker. And the Brosteins, Mike Branstein and Nick Branstein wrote the official NativeScript book, which is free.
Yeah.
So you can download that too if you're into books.
Awesome. Well, it was awesome to have you on the stream, Alex.
Thanks for having me. See you later.